I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, my name is JJ, as you've already heard. I'm with the Small Business Development Center and what was formerly known as PTAC, which is now APEX Accelerator. And this is my colleague Andrea, who you've already met and enjoyed her company. The way our programs work is the APEX Accelerator sits underneath the Small Business Development Center. We are business consultants who have been hired by the university. So the idea, I got my formal voice on. I need to turn that off. So I don't know where it just kind of happened. So the goal is we are available to the entire small business community, the entrepreneurial community, and the pre-entrepreneurial community. So anyone who's like thinking of starting something, you don't have to pay for us. The university has paid our salaries, and so Andrea is one of our best consultants on, and I can say that honestly, no cap. And she's tasked with several things, but one of those things is helping startups and helping small businesses just launch. And when we have companies, or at least entrepreneurs work with Andrea, she has a unique way of like putting herself in somebody else's shoes, and in our society that's a little bit more rare, and so she can kind of see, like step in your shoes and kind of see, okay, here are the things that you need to do, and then she hones in on helping you. Like sometimes, especially at the pre-entrepreneur stage, there's a lot of times where you kind of block yourself, or your vision isn't clear, or you don't know what you don't know. And I've seen more than a few times Andrea being able to kind of go alongside of you and say, hey, have you thought of this? I think that's one of my favorite phrases of yours is, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? She's not telling you, she's having you think. So this is how I would introduce Andrea, because she is just phenomenal at what she does. And she's kind of like you, LaDonna. The more she does, the more she gets. But you know, Andrew's got good boundaries, but you know, this still comes your way. But I want her also to introduce herself, because I want her to explain a little bit of the SBDC. I've got an org chart I'll kind of share with you, but I want to hear it. I want you to hear it from her in terms of what the Small Business Development Center and your experience as well.
Thank you. Good morning once again, and I am Andrea John Baptiste, and I'm one of the newer consultants of the SBDC team. I have been an entrepreneur for about 20 years, and I'm still an entrepreneur with several businesses, primarily working with my husband's business. So I think to JJ's point, part of my skill set is having done a lot of it and having many successes as well as many challenges and lessons along the way. And I come from the school of thought of, I don't have to make the mistake to learn the lesson. I can sometimes observe. And I hope to share that with folks, because maybe if I share with you a lesson, then you don't have to experience it and you can bypass that one and move forward. With the Small Business Development Centers, as JJ said, we're no-cost consulting one-on-one. Most of our services are virtual or online. If you ever would like to meet with me, my office is typically downtown Fort Lauderdale. However, being a partner with the town of Davie, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, I also have what I call Davie Days, and I'm usually here on the second Tuesday of every month from about 1 to about 6, sometimes a little bit earlier, just depends on what the client's needs look like. And I'm usually over in, Building C? Yes. Building C on those days. So if you are interested, make an appointment, come on in. I'd love to sit with you. As part of the work that we do have contracts, memorandum of agreements, and things of that nature with different areas and entities. And I'm very thankful to have a partnership contract with the town of Davie, meaning that we provide you all with the one-on-one consulting as we do others, but give you a little bit more of your time and our accessibility and things and priorities, right, to ensure that you're able to access the resources that you need to be able to scale up your business as quickly as you can. And so we are very thankful, and part of that relationship offers these types of trainings. And I'm really excited about some of the things that we're looking to do in the future. In addition to this, we're doing kind of a startup training next month, and then in the summer, we're looking at doing a panel on Ask an Expert, right? So it'll be like the lawyer specialized training as well as limited sources. So in addition to the one-on-one consulting, we do webinar type-based trainings. We also do these types of trainings. We also will have a small business conference that's coming up in August. Where is it? It's like outside of Jacksonville. It's like kind of northeast-ish Florida. It's not a town that I'm familiar with, so forgive me. But it's a great resource because it allows for small businesses to network with each other, to connect, and to showcase yourselves to other small businesses and those that are looking to consume your wares. So on that note, I have monopolized
No, you
more
haven't.
than enough
No, you
time.
haven't. No, it's beautiful. I
And
felt
so-
like you guys got a good feel for us, right? Oh.
So I'm gonna turn it over so you can learn about what you really came
Well,
for. Excuse
But
me.
you could, so I just love having Andrea on the team, you can tell.
Thank you.
She did not monopolize. She gave you a sense of how we work, right? And so, so we are often the best kept secret because people don't know the Small Business Development Center exists and that, we don't charge for our time. We are kind of spread across the public, so we're, like I said, pre-entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses. We even have a few mid-sized businesses that are kind of working within our system. So we are, if you're not using us, your competitors might be using us. So I do say that to you, and I say that to people who work with me, that we do confidential one-on-one sessions, but I just get everyone in the aquarium coming at us, right? Because sometimes you have to work out an idea, and sometimes you can't work it out with staff, family and friends. Sometimes you just gotta work it out, and we're really a good sounding board. Some of my best calls are me not saying anything, just them kind of just working out an idea, and it's safe because it's confidential. There's no one there, and before you bring it back to your team, bring it back to your other partners or your staff, it kind of we're a good resource in a lot of different ways. So, like I said, the PTAC program is now the APEX Accelerator. We're hosted at Florida Atlantic University, and we're also the national championship at AU, by the way, as well. If I hadn't mentioned that, so just want to make sure, we do stand out. So, with the town of Davie, I want to echo Andrea's sentiments because it's just a beautiful city. They're very innovative to have us on site and have Andrea's time here, so you have access to her. And please, if you have business partners, you have family members who are starting companies, please utilize Andrea's time because she comes on campus here. And so you never know. It's so funny because I'll have meetings with people and then I'll get a solicitation come on my desk, and I just had a meeting with someone and I was contacting them saying, you have no idea, I just had this solicitation, it's coming from the town of Davie or it's coming from this other agency, it's hot, go after it. And so, if nothing else in terms of business consulting or coaching, but we've got opportunities that come on our desk, and you never know what some of the time with us might result. So, so we work together. This is kind of an older picture, but we are housed in some of the different campuses. So I'm in the Boca Raton campus, next to campus. And then we have some consultants who are at downtown Fort Lauderdale, and then Andrea's Davie. I think we have another. I think that's the three, because we used to have people at Jupiter. So, and then this is how the team is composed. And so you can see Andrea this doesn't compose all what she does, but I put her in the startup area of it because a lot of times when people meet Andrea for the first time, they're coming at her from this direction. And so on what I call operational specialists, we've got a digital and marketing team, and we have a whole group that is focused on, we just had someone exit, so I didn't have a spot to change that. So, but a lot of our companies come to us because they're looking for a loan or capital access or financing. So of these two individuals here, they just really help people go through the SBD program and kind of understand that program and see. And what we want people to do is, in addition to your banking relationship, see if there are financing products that might be out there that you're not aware of. So work with our people who are actually having close relationships with the banks. which you don't have time for. You have time to work off your own bank, but there might be other financing products out there. And so those banking specialists will come and connect with Angel and Annette because of their background, and they're talking products all the time. And as you know, things change, right? So that's, and then David he's actually at a hedge fund, and he's contributing time, volunteering time to do accounting guidance. And so he's not doing your accounting for you, but he will look at your books and kind of give you some tips on how to look at it. And I point this out because this is a problem for all small businesses at every stage, that the bookkeeping's, always a challenge. So for every business. So we do have some support there. I'm on the government contracting side. My two colleagues so Carol is actually used to work for Honeywell, which is one of the tier 1 prime government contractors. And then to my left is Bob. Bob actually has an area of specialization in something called SBIR or SBIR, which is this is a government seminar, so it's an acronym overload. So I'm going to work through these acronyms. So what all this means is the government will fund technology that's innovative, that helps the federal government achieve an objective. So they'll go in and they will drop $100K in a small business that's doing research in a particular area. Okay, so talking with Bob, sometimes my brain bleeds a little bit because it's just a little bit out there. But so it's amazing what the government's involved in, especially the federal government. So and then I'm not a fan of nonprofits. Okay, but that's because my dad started a nonprofit out of our living room, so I have feelings, if you understand. It's nothing, So, but we have some of my esteemed colleagues who love nonprofits. Even the word nonprofit I have a problem with, but nonetheless, they love nonprofits. So even nonprofits get a little shine in our Small Business Development Center, and so and then. If you are looking at foreign markets and you want to internationalize your company, we have a consultant who actually assists you in thinking about, looking at different markets. And so the reason I share our org chart, not because we're super, super special, is because I just wanted to plant some ideas in your mind in terms of what other opportunities, because I'm talking to entrepreneurs, and I know that not just one business is inside of you, there might be other businesses. And you might have a specialization in a certain area, and then you might be called to invest in a different area, or you might want to start. And we would love for you to start with us so that we can kind of help you think it through. You're always the expert, we're here to support. So I just want to make sure that you're aware, because no one knows that we exist because we're confidential by nature, right? So we're in the back. So we don't market ourselves in that way. So we can't give you all the successes our companies do because these are confidential. It's like business therapy. So I'm going to kind of move through some of this slides just because you've heard a lot about us so far. So government contracting. So this is where I want to introduce you guys. Okay. So I met Dave, LaDonna, and Tori. I'd like you to introduce your company, services you offer, introduce yourselves to each other, and then tell me what's your objectives today so that I will craft my what I'm going to say based on what your needs are today. So I'll pick, or who would like to? I knew you were going to put first. I had a feeling. You just show that vibe. I just knew it. Go ahead, Tori. Introduce yourself.
I'll do my actual government name, Mitoria Durham. Thank you. The company is GGB Global Services. And what we do is we're getting into the janitorial services initially, and branching out to other things. But right now we're focusing on janitorial.
Okay.
We're a startup.
Okay.
We're a startup. And as far as for the government contracts, we're on SAM.gov.
Yay!
Excellent.
Yay!
We're on SAM.gov. We've just received our official certification on Thursday for FMSCC. FDOT,
DBE.
DBE.
Hey! All right, that's a big one.
That's a big.
They did a site visit for you.
Mhm.
They put you to the work.
We had to get the example.
I know. I know. I don't meet a lot of DBEs, so congratulations.
Just said that. And then we're in the process of doing the state of Florida's
Okay, good.
what is it?
CBE?
CBE?
Mhm.
CBE.
State of Florida is going to be MBE.
Oh, MBE. It's so many.
CBE too. An
And
SBE, a CBE.
They have a minority-
WBE,
Do
and
they?
veteran certification.
Veteran, I know.
Yeah, and we're back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it's
CBE.
It's going to be easier than the DVOT, I promise you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So, and then your objectives today. Though I have a sense of what your objectives are.
Objectives is basically just to fine tune, find out more information, really horn in,
Okay.
because kind of, I feel all over the place
Okay.
on looking at the SAM.gov and really getting our feet wet, you know, like, because I know a lot of the governmental contracts that we've been seeing, experience is a big thing. And so there's, you know, past experience, but it's been so long.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out how to get that new experience, or, you know, do we partner with someone, just, you know, trying to
So
figure out the
Clarity
ropes.
is what you're looking for.
For sure.
So that you can communicate.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to make it awkward. It's just my natural thing to make things awkward. My wife makes fun of me. And she's like, you love making things awkward. I'm like, I really do. I really do.
My name is David Plask. I'm involved in a family business, fourth generation, 98-year-old business. Thank you. Basically, we are in the hand embroidery to automated embroidery stuff. We deal with our primary business is dealing with the adult fraternities, the Shriners, the Masons. We actually make those red hats that you see on the TV commercials and all that stuff. So that's our core business. Then we do government embroidery and also business embroidery stuff, screen printing. We do everything in-house. Just been doing that. Actually have a contract with Town of Davie for 5 years. Just renewed, got a second bid, thanks, for another one that's 4 years plus more extensions and stuff like that. And I've been trying to piggyback to other cities. And unfortunately, it feels like I'm teaching them about piggybacking. So,
Yes, you are.
so
Yes, you are. You will sometimes have to teach your government customer. Okay.
yeah. So it's like just trying to figure out how to navigate that, and then also try to get back more into some more government stuff too.
Yay. So then your goal today.
Just understand more processes and things, just
Okay.
to figure out, what
You're gonna
clarity
see a
more
lot more
to.
overview,
Right.
but depending on time, please just stop me and ask.
Okay.
Because I have to make it as general as possible,
Right.
which is a problem. But I want to make sure I take care of your objectives too. So Donna, we know what one of your objectives are, but outside of that, your specific objective as you're introducing yourself.
My name is LaDonna Harbeck, and I work for KER Construction. We do remodels, residential and commercial. We are a general contractor. We have a general license. We've been in business for 8 years. We are now branching out more into government contracts.
Yes.
And my objective is learning processes and just making sure I understand the paperwork and everything so I can teach my project managers and get them ready to go.
So I will also be general in that
Yeah.
way. So, but please pause me and ask a specific question, because if I can get into the weeds, I'm a nerd. I'll be happy to do so. There was like 50 more slides I wanted to put on this, but I had.
Wait.
But they were like, "You just send the damn thing. Just send the damn thing." And so I was like, "Just a couple more slides I want to put in this area." Okay, right. Formalities are gone, guys. All right. So, all right. right, so benefits of targeting the federal marketplace. So I don't need to sell you on this because you already know the benefits. I'm dealing with a more advanced group of people, so I appreciate that. And so our federal government likes to spend a lot of money. Checking the ground. So, but they're very picky and choosy who they spend it with. So the reason why this thing has changed, the name has changed. So someone in the federal government realized the total amount of spend with small businesses is roughly the same, but the number of small businesses who are getting that spend is decreasing. So someone in the Biden administration, and I'm not selling any administration or politics here, please don't take that, but someone in this particular administration said, hey, let's make some changes here that, let's prioritize small businesses, okay? So I'm part of probably a multi-year, multi-decade improvement of federal procurement. So hopefully you will see those changes in your lifetime. I'm joking, but we'll see more small businesses. And I have, in the last year, I have seen smaller companies take on smaller jobs, and at times at stages in their company that surprise them, but also surprise me too.
Me too.
Yeah, so Sandra's agreeing, so I'm just like loving it. So there is something to be said about top-down impact, from, again, I'm not telling you to vote for anything like that, not selling it, please don't get that from me, I'm neutral. But, when somebody does something good, I do want to point it out. Okay, so there are so many offices that are buying and doing procurement. And what Dave didn't share earlier is that he is already a federal contractor. And I said, hey, you're a federal contractor. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yes, you are. They're buying from you, so that makes you a federal contractor. I know that it doesn't feel official that way, but some of the departments that you described that are buying from you are very difficult to actually get their attention. And the fact that you're family-owned businesses, a business, generationally speaking, have held that reputation I just want to applaud you publicly. So whatever you learn from me, when you have someone who's broken into it, and Dave seems like a nice guy, not sure yet, but he seems like a nice guy. The reason I introduce you is because you guys learn from each other, and he's also a contractor here with Davie. I would love for you to, I don't know what it is about South Florida and American culture now, but we're just so antisocial for whatever reason. There's no need for that, and you're just gonna learn from other small business owners in a way that you won't learn from someone else, right? Because they've been in the trenches, they've seen all the bull crap, they've run through all this paperwork, they've got the same kind of schedule that you are, and I kid you not, I will try to match entrepreneurs as much as I can outside of this program, because I'm not allowed within the program to do that as much, but when I meet you on the streets, I do that, because I love entrepreneurs and small business owners. But what you guys learn from each other is significant, because there's just, the stuff that you guys go through, like another small business owner or small business staff member will just understand that. And so please get each other's cards. And you have no idea, you might think your three businesses are so disparate and so different, you have no idea. You don't, so at least, yeah, because there's synergies here that you guys may not even realize. And so right off the bat, I just want to thank you for putting your butts in the seats today. If nothing else for yourselves, because you just never know what kind of opportunities. And what's really cool is that you might see an opportunity for someone in this room, and you might be the one to share it with them. And you told a story like that today. And I won't share your story, but that happens a lot among small business owners. Look, I understand competition, okay? I understand, we all gotta be sharks, all right? We all have to be predators, it's business, okay? But at the same time, as you're building a business, and as you're building businesses, it's the quality people that you pull together at times when you need to team up. And I'm going on this rabbit hole because the federal government going after this work, you might have to team up with different types of competitors or, temporary competitors to go after some work to build capacity. And the federal government will tend to look at a team of small businesses because that reduces their risk. And they're just assuming that you're coming in with capacity because you've got enough here and here to kind of have those relationships so that you're coming to government proper. And that matters to them in more ways than, I've been on both sides of the table and wear both shoes, and I can tell you the weird conversations I've had in selection committee meetings, you know, and some of the more interesting things that I've seen as well. So on the federal side, I spent some time actually last week with federal buyers, and it's interesting how they approach, how they think. And so when you're thinking of the benefits, I want you to imagine that you are positioning your company at some point for federal procurement, and half of it's paperwork, but half of it's relationships, and you never know what relationship will connect you with the federal government. You just don't, right? So there are several bases in South Florida, right? So you have Navy and Air Force and Army bases in Florida as a whole. We have Southern Command here. So Southcom is here. So, I mean, the federal structure around Florida is significant. And what I want you to do is say, I'm willing to penetrate this structure, and I'm willing to work with the relationships I have, friends and family, and figure out who knows who, okay? That's really critical. You have no idea what might be gold in your network of people that you know. You just don't, if you thought about it, like who do you know who's in federal government, who's connected, which congressman or congresswoman, who's connected to the military, right? Because I want you to walk away from here and feel like, hey, this is possible. I could make these connections, and I might even have these relationships. I just never thought to call them, or we meet all the time, we talk all the time, but we don't really talk about their connection. So I want you, remember the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Remember that from years ago? So the idea was this actor, like all of us have these degree of connections, and we could and the game was to see how many connections you could get to this particular actor. I ask you to do that with government. How many connections can you get where you're actually close to government? Because the reality is, you might be 1 or 2 or 3 calls away from someone who actually has a decision-making ability. I mean, sometimes it's just crazy. Just crazy. So I want you to see the federal government for the rigged structure that it is. So this is reality-based. Right? I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's as structured and rigid and paperwork, all of the things. It's all of the things. But I want you to figure out how are you going to penetrate it, because that gives you the competitive edge of how you're going to break through and your relationships. Okay? Because there is a ton of decision makers, a ton, and each department, each sub-department, each sub-agency, they just it's like a herd of cats. It's like crazy. It's crazy that our federal government is a herd of cats, but it truly is. And if you've ever done government contracting, you know. And this is no hit on my fellow government agency colleagues, but you know we can go in different directions. As a business owner, you want to catch it, and you never know. Okay, so hey, see, I did it. You know, I went backwards. Okay, all right. This is not my favorite topic, but I'll talk about it because I have a DBE in the room, and so. But it's really important because it's critical that if you can get certified in a certain area, that you should, because this is justice and this is diversity, and the federal government is committed to that, depending on administration. And so when you can pursue a certification and certify, whether it's within protected categories or not, please do so. It's a lot of paperwork, and a cavity search. But, it does give you a marketing edge, okay? And I could literally spend, hours with you on the phone of all the different certification programs you could pursue, okay? So in the federal government, there's 4 of these. And the reason why this is not my favorite topic is because depending on how the entrepreneur approaches this, it could be a red herring. But if the entrepreneur approaches this properly, it could actually be one of the biggest things that make a difference for your company. Okay, So service disabled, women-owned firms, minority, and Hub Zone. How many of you have heard of the Hub Zone? Okay. So Hub Zone is so when you're in anti-poverty, they actually will give you areas as an economic developer where there are need for economic development. Okay, and they do this by census. They keep track of this data. And so what happens is that in the procurement side, they've taken that census data and brought it over here and say, hey, if you built your company in an area that is economically distressed, and you're pulling out staff, you have staff who live in that area and you're headquartered in that area, you may be eligible for Hub Zone because you have located your company and your staff might exist in a Hub Zone. And so there's literally a map, a federal map. You just go Hub Zone, throw it in your Google or DuckDuckGo browser, and check to see if your address is in a Hub Zone. If it is, you might want to see how many of your staff live in that Hub Zone. And if you hit that 35% number, you might be eligible for a Hub Zone designation with the federal government. And now your company, headquartered in an economically distressed area, you're training people who live in that economically distressed area, and they stay retained in your company. Well, the U.S. government loves you because you're doing something that the federal government can't change with other programs. So they're trying to change an area through the procurement spend. Okay, and so I can't tell you how many people are passing on this Hub Zone piece. Okay, it's just literally. It's a missed opportunity because it's just based on the headquarter of your location of your business and the people. Because what I find is people you're just finding talent wherever you find it. You don't care if you come from a distressed area or not. They're just trying to get good talent. It's so hard to hire people. And all this work you put into training people and they stay, and if they're from this area, of one of these areas, then you're already doing the good work. Why not just get the designation as well? So please don't miss out. I entertain these in my sessions. I entertain this all the time because my goal is for you to win. Andrew's goal is for you to win. Leona's goal is for you to win. Okay? If you don't feel that today, if we haven't conveyed that some way, shape, or form, then you weren't listening. But and then with the minority-owned certification, I'm just really passionate. So you heard me say on one side I don't like talking about this because I don't want people to just use the certification to think that that's going to win you business because it's not. But if you're building a business, then if you're eligible, please take these opportunities, right? Because you want to be leading your community, okay? And so I want every minority-owned firm to go after every minority certification that exists. That you're up, take them all, okay? But don't just do it all at one time, because that's a lot of damn paperwork. So I will get into a preach on my calls because I'll say, hey, listen, this is outside of core business. Let's just stay with core business, right? And then just pick up one of these at times, or when you see a solicitation, do it. Or if you plan on going this direction, like let's not just jam yourself with paperwork because then you have to coordinate all these certification eligibilities, the reporting. Don't squander your business core going after these, right? This is why it's not my favorite topic. But on the other side, I want you to take every single opportunity each of these agencies present you, okay? So I think I landed that comment. So move on to the next slide. So this is the part. Yes. Yes, my first question.
So
Yes.
doing the certifications, does it limit you in areas, or is it supposed to open it up even more?
Lovely question.
Because,
Tell me more about that question.
well, my owner, we could do that. He doesn't because he's afraid that it's going to limit him on some of his contracts.
Love that question. I love that. So there's this answer I'm supposed to give you. But I'm to just give you the answer I'm supposed to give you. I'll give you both answers. So he's actually not wrong. Okay? So as a business person, you always have to look at risks.
Right.
Okay? So, so now the official answer is he should definitely get certified and he should definitely go after it. Okay? So what you want to do with the owner of your company is tease that out a little bit and say, let's say you and I are doing the meetings together. Let's say we're looking at opportunities and those opportunities involve certification and would give you an edge. Then you're coming to him with a solid opportunity and you're seeing set aside and now you can say, hey, there's a business commercial reason to pursue this. All right? Then certification is a marketing opportunity, but it doesn't have to be. So you could present the certification to the agencies that are interested in inclusion.
But I don't have to in the others.
Yes, and then you have agencies that have that attitude and you keep it close to the chest.
Thank you.
So
That was, yeah, I learned something, thank you. I learned something today too, that's a good strategy.
Yeah,
We've always,
Yeah, cause I'm always,
we've
you know.
wanted
first,
to,
yeah.
because we see some of the contracts, but we don't, because we don't want to limit us.
yeah, because so we live in this real world where there's all this racism and then there's in this other world there's no racism. Like
And how can
it's like this crazy like, okay, wait a minute, let's just kind of like stop for a moment and like let's just see reality as it is and you just have certain attitudes that permeate temporarily or permanently within agencies. Nobody's gonna say I'm racist, okay? So, I mean, but you know, but you will have scenarios, right? I remember, well, I'm going down a rabbit hole. So I'm gonna stick with your question. The purpose of certification is to be supportive of companies that can deliver services and not products. And so that's what it's for. It's not for companies that are not companies and just are certified to just be certified. But it's also not meant to be a badge of dishonor. So, because a lot of companies who get minority or women-owned certified, I meet these people, and they're just as kick-ass as their counterparts, right? So, but they're getting an edge because the utilization of that population, that community, has been rigged. So, how do we solve that rigging? We can't. So the federal government is saying, okay, we understand society is a certain way and certain segments of society, so let's utilize this tool. And so you can utilize the tool in a way that works best for you. And there's a lot of companies who feel this way, and they share that with me privately. So now you've heard what I've said, what I say privately. Use it in a way that is effective for you. Great question. Great question. You didn't even give me an easy one on the first one. I love that. Because
Been in it for a while.
yeah, and I had slides on it. No, just kidding.
Oh.
Just kidding. Okay. All right.
She was allowed to.
People was allowed to go
I like you. All right. So the damn paperwork. Okay. So the paperwork. Okay. So I have another slide on this, but I just want you to be just realistic that business is full of paperwork. And just if it's just you and your dad, someone's getting stuck with that paperwork. Okay, I had a feeling, right? I had a feeling. So just understand it's the cost of doing business, but it doesn't mean you have to do every mound of paperwork, right? If you and I are working together, which I hope we will, we'll focus on opportunities. We'll hunt for stuff, and then if you think that's the play, then what I do often is I sit in the solicitation with you and we just review it, okay? And my goal is to make that solicitation that much more like reader friendly, and then because I want to see you propose, right? So you're setting up your proposal, and honestly, people meet with me for like 6-7 sessions. The training wheels are off by meeting three, because you just get used to the paperwork and you get used to once you get a proposal template.
It does get redundant.
Yes.
What I realized.
Yes, it does. does. And there's no way for me to teach that, but the fact that you know that already, it does. Because even if it's local, state, county, school district, federal, you will see like commonalities across those. You will. And
The
people
only
don't.
one that's different is Seminoles.
Oh, that's.
Well, that's a whole nother animal.
Yeah, that's a
They
whole.
have their
Yeah,
own
that's a whole
everything.
But
That's another
yes,
beast,
you're
yeah.
correct for
Yes,
state
government.
Government.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
Seminole government,
And
totally
that's what
different.
they're their own
Different
sovereign
countries,
country.
I want to say lots of things, I just can't say it. So, but if you're winning Seminole work, God bless you, because that's good money. So, that's good money.
We have the HVAC right now.
We know a lady in
Congrats.
Portland that she works with her local tribe. Like she has like 3 different contracts. So we actually got with her to see like, how, ma'am, how did you do this? Like, and she worked with them for years. And you know, it's hard to get into
But once
the
you're
tribal
in there,
community.
Yes.
you got it.
Yes.
You're in.
That's the way they are.
And which is
I love that.
really good, but getting in is hard.
Yes, they'll put you through that. Well, so that's I'm so glad we got, so that I had a slide on this, but I didn't put it in. But, so, the federal government has a particular focus on Native American companies, okay? So, they are making a killing inside the federal government, okay? So, if you see solicitations that go to Native American-owned firms, these are sometimes 6-figure opportunities, and so, so if you happen to meet a Native American, I would just,
Very
say,
bubbly.
yeah, I would just say, for federal government work, it's just one of those opportunities, right? I don't believe in pass-through, so, I've been in this a long time, so I've seen people sell their certificate, so they could be a pass-through. I'm just being as honest as I can, transparent. Yeah, so they've got a shell, right? And they will just sell the certificate, and then people will just use the certificate. And I don't wanna lie to you, but I can tell you, I've been in this long enough. I've been in this long enough. I've been on both sides of the table, okay? And it depends on the agency, okay? So some agencies do not, they don't. So you're not gonna see it from a town of Davie, okay? Because the town of Davie is going to pay attention to the subcontractors, and they're going to look at it a little bit more closely. But there are some agencies where they might not pay attention to the 2nd and 3rd tiers. And I work at one of these agencies, and I have people tell this, like I've heard it from the horse's mouth, where how can I compete when they're just selling their certificate? They're not doing the work. The prime is just working right through them. So I know I'm supposed to say certain official things, but for business people here, we got to look at all the risks, and it exists. So you will face.
We're the service connected disabled veteran.
Okay.
So that would be like if you wanted to do a bid or get a contract for a service disabled veteran.
Yes.
You're trying to
Happens
get
a lot.
out. Oh no!
Yeah.
But that puts your.
Now I'm not presenting a roadmap, just so you
No.
know. I'm just saying that you are going to compete against certain business practices that exist out there. And I just want you to understand it happens, okay? So, but my case is that those companies don't survive, right? So they get that job for that, they got used, and then, it taps out, right? So just, we were talking about this earlier, certain business practices, they're temporary in nature, right? But it'll cause you to lose something, because of a certain strategy that was tried. So sometimes you might lose an award because someone was able to successfully use a strategy that, is way out of bounds. And I'm always here, just in my meetings with you, I'm always here to encourage you to just stay on it, because you can't control other people's practices, right?
And you can't get every contract either.
Yeah. Well,
And if you do,
I mean, that's an understatement, right? It's like, so I'm gonna keep moving through this because I've slowed down too much because you guys are so much fun. So I'm gonna just move through some of these slides because they're not super relevant. But I just want to say on the document management side is critical in terms of federal government work, because if you're not managing your documents, one thing for me, so when I'm working with you, the thing that I don't really care how organized you are. What I care about is how fluid you are in terms of hunting for sales. That's what I mean by document management. I mean it in the overall manner, but I actually mean it where if you're pursuing a solicitation and you can't hit that window, you might want to come back at that. So I want you to have a folder for that particular solicitation that you found at this time, and you're like, you know what, that's going to come up in 3 years. I'll come back at it in 3 years. I want you to have a small calendaring system and maybe even folders where you're like, we're going to target this for 2025. This is what I mean by document management, where I want you to think of it in terms of sales management. Because let's say you bid on it and lost it. I still want you to go after the next time if you think it's not rigged, and if you think the awardee doesn't own that agency, and if you think that you could compete on it because they might make mistakes, right? Dave told me a story earlier, and where he knew a contract was coming to him because he knew when they price killed him that they would come back, and they did, right? It's a great story. I'm not gonna tell your story. I'll let you tell this story. It's a great story, right? So just because you didn't get on the first dib or the second dib, I want your system, your calendar, your documents, management system to be able to always fill in your sales funnel. Always fill it, and especially if this, like sometimes, I kid you not, you'll like literally look at a solicitation, you're like, this thing is like built for me. It's like unbelievable, this sector is built for my company, like the Davie one was for you, right? So, and some rogue company owns this contract and is holding it, right? And you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just keep this on the shelf until we can come back at it. I might need to donate to a political campaign, I might need to have some conversations, I might need to collect some subcontractors, I need to change my mechanism in terms of going after this future work. You guys are hearing what I'm saying and what I'm not saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to have to say what I'm not saying. Okay, good, because you guys are fast. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. So why does this matter? In federal government, it matters a lot. Your sales funnel, you keeping track of the solicitations because your federal competitors are aggressive, which is why they keep winning. Why the larger competitors keep winning it isn't always because of capacity. I know we talked about that, but sometimes it's capacity. But sometimes they're just like on this stuff, watching it so closely. And small business owners, we just can't watch stuff like that. We just can't. We don't have time. So whatever way you can make your sales funnel a bit more helpful to you, where you throw things in the calendar like, hey, let me look at this in a couple of years. Do you think you're gonna remember next week or a month later? So imagine throwing into your calendar 3 years from now, like, hey, this contract's coming up. You're like, oh my goodness, now it's in front of your face. So let me go into that agency, so they're there. Is it the same contract officer? And you're just like taking 10 minutes of your time to look at that sucker that was live 3 years ago. This is what I mean. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Let me back up a little bit because you're in the starter phase, right, Tori? So I wrote it this way, okay? Not to intimidate you, but I just want to give you milestones in terms of like as you're pursuing the federal marketplace, you and your dad and your family and your staff, like you're putting milestones together that you're going to achieve, because you talked about experience in the federal marketplace, but your recommendations, the people who will speak for your company is really huge when you enter the federal marketplace. I mean, I had a small business owner when I said the story all the time, but it's just so interesting. He just wanted to start government contracting and didn't want to do anything else. And I'm like, listen, you got to get private work before you do government. He's like, okay, I'll do that too, but I want you government contracting. Great. So he hustled both sides, right? Within a year, he did a lot of small jobs in the private sector. But within a year, he won his first federal contract and county contract within a week of each other. Just hustle. So I share that story that he had some challenges because he didn't have all the customer testimonials that he needed to go after other work. So he had to continue to build relationships such that every job he got, he was able to have customers. So I just want you, when you see me kind of put out, 2 years of customer transactions, I don't want you to think, oh, I can't do it now. I want you to build to this and build past it, okay? But your customer testimonials matter, especially federal government work, because they're gonna, sometimes the local governments may not make the call, but some of the federal contractor officers might, okay? Because, they're sitting at a desk and they don't know you from Adam. You're not in their local pond. You're somewhere else, so they might contact that customer because their career's on the line. So the risk is higher. So if they can weed you out of there, they got too many people going after them. So if they can weed out, make the list smaller, they'll do that. Okay. Backward again. Okay. All right. So LaDonna, I want to speak to you on this because this is critical. Because your life is execution, okay? And what you bring to your company is your execution. And you will probably help them win federal work because of how you operate, quality-wise. And I need to speak that message to you directly, okay? So you walk out of here and you got a 10 on your head because you understand what you're doing. And that execution that discipline you have is going to help you win federal work, okay? Because you're handling you're coordinating, you're organizing, you're all of that. And when you're winning federal work and you're like the golden goose inside the company, it's because of this. Because the federal government, you could get on the phone with Brian, right? You had to deal with that issue, right? But the federal government, they're not getting on the phone. You got a problem? Okay, well, I guess this is going to litigation. The amount of federal litigation out there is crazy. But if federal contractors just did the job and did it well, they just swim, they break the glass ceiling, and they live in that world of I cannot tell you that doing this job has opened my eyes because I did mostly local government contracting, but hearing my federal government contractors, the world they live in, the ones who win, they just get referrals all the time. What you described to me earlier, Dave, is exactly what my other federal contractor. People hear about the ones who break through, and then they stay in that aquarium up there, and everybody else stays in the aquarium down here. Because once you develop performance, the federal government has a performance database, and your name pops up when you bid, and they're like, oh, not great performance here, probably this litigation here. Okay, well, we got plenty of people we can go. There's plenty of fish. So I can't stress the execution side, right? So if you come out of this and say, hey, we could go after federal work, I hope that's your feeling, because it just comes down to execution. And the federal government, in certain cases, are very liberal on pricing, okay? They don't mind your margin, okay? Because a lot of them are pretty serious about you just doing the job and doing it well and getting on the hell out of their face so they can go after the next spec that they're putting on. So if you're a painless contractor, they're putting in the notes in the federal, it's CPAR, I think, CPAR, and it's basically a database of performance, federal contract, government-wide, and so they limit the nonsense, and they don't mind spending their money.
No.
But you can't be a pain in the ass.
But there's a lot of rules they have. They have to give them a QCP off top.
They will.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
all so that you're not a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
That's what the documentation's about. And in construction, because there's no more pain in the ass sector than construction, so you're so highly regulated so they can make construction companies behave, and construction companies will not behave. So the federal government has the same attitude, hey, we'll just dump paperwork on you. Okay, I call this air campaign a ground game, and every time I say it, it never really lands, but insanity is about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, but I will try this again. I call this air campaign, which is us sitting behind a computer and just looking at solicitations and going after it, It exists. SAM.gov. The university, you'll see it on the slide. The university, we've purchased like 2 or 3 bid portals so that you don't have to buy those portals or subscribe to it. I can't lend it to you, but when you're sitting with me, I will sit on those portals and we can look at, based on your NAICS codes, look at what solicitations are out right at this moment. So I call that air campaign, okay? And the worst thing to tell a small business owner is to talk about marketing, and I'm so glad I don't have to do that as a job, because you guys hate to hear marketing. Because the worst thing is for a small business owner to spend money on marketing. And you guys don't admit it, but I always see the pain in your face, and it cracks me up because you guys hate to market. And everybody tells you, market. Social media, and you guys are like, yeah, one more conversation on marketing. So, I don't want to get in trouble with you guys, but that being said, is your market position in your company matters. And so, part of it is searching for the solicitation on the bid portals, but some of it is like, what's the reputation of your company? How well known is your company? And how can you change how well known your company is? Okay? So you're a 100-year family-owned business. So your company has been viral within the federal government, right? That is market. And the marketing is the execution of your family generation over generation. You didn't pay for it, you paid for it in sweat and equity, right? I said that to you as well, right? Our execution. I'm saying now to you, Tori, that your execution, keeping your family in check and making sure everyone's marching down this path, is gonna matter. Your execution is your form of marketing, but you do have to expose people to your company. You just have to, right? You came up, you got up this morning, you sat here, we're a little bit late, you sat here, still sitting here, you didn't walk out, right? Because you're here to learn something. And so, as small business owners, I know you guys hate to hear about marketing, and you're not going to admit to me that you hate to hear about marketing, but you know you hate to hear about marketing. Oh, okay, all right, one of you. Oh, see, okay, at least 2 people, okay. And so I want you to instead of thinking marketing, thinking, how do I expose our brand, expose our reputation to the right decision makers? So forget about push marketing. How do we have people discover us? Because working with us is better than working with the competition. And that's how I want you to look at this. So when you are proposing, and I get someone to submit a proposal, I always tell them, you are marketing your company and you haven't spent a dime other than labor hours to just send a proposal, right? Because you have now let that contract officer know that you exist. So just bidding is a form of marketing, okay? I call that air campaign because we live in this world where we can just shoot bids all over the world, right? We don't have to travel like we used to have to travel. We don't have to do any of that. Now, I did once do door-to-door sales. You probably could see that. I did, we all had to figure things out, right? And sometimes you have to go to doors, all right? But take advantage of, bidding on work. Take advantage of whatever way you can expose your company to a decision maker. So some of your competitors might use social media. Some of them might use different platforms, okay? But having been on the other side of government, on the decision-making side, I always found it fascinating. I had 2 types of people come at me. So I had the mid-sized and big companies throw warm bodies at us in government, okay? So I'd see the regular people that come, they talk to all our politicians, they talk to our decision-makers, they would even talk to us lowly staff, okay? And then it would be like 3 or 4 solo entrepreneurs who would do the same thing. And they would just come in and they would meet with people. They would attend all the events. I don't even know how they had time, how they were able to even sleep. And they would just come. And they would act just like the big boys act, the big gals act, which is they are looking to get their brand out there. And the problem that the other small business owners who didn't do that didn't realize is that the more government sees you, you wear us down. We're not gonna admit that to you. But we see your smiling face and we see you in the room, right? You had a Parks and Rec guy just come in here just because you walked in. He came in here. I don't even know why he walked in here other than to tell you that he was gonna order with you, right? And you were like, oh, happy to help you, right? We're human, we're social creatures. So if somebody from your company is coming in and government is seeing you, I kid you not, we're human. So if you're not a pain in the butt and you're pleasant, and we see you at events, we see you at city council meetings, we see you, right? The federal government you can't do that with, but I'm just pushing local government you can do that with, right? But imagine at some point where you are sending a business development, a BD person to the congresswoman's house, or congresswoman's office, excuse me, not house. Woo! Roll back the tape, roll back the tape, roll back the tape, roll. Okay, let me drink a little bit of my,
Their office. Office.
let me take a drink of that. Okay, I don't know where that Freudian slip went. Okay, woo! I don't think I can even fix that. So what I meant was the congressman's house, office. I said it twice. I must be watching too much news. There's just too much corruption going on. Okay. All right. So let me try it again. The congressman's office and congresswoman's office and their legislative aides office, and you're just sending your BD people. And this is a funny thing to talk to small business owners about their BD people. But at some point, you're going to have business developers. You're the business developer, but you're going to have to get sometimes people to kind of be an extension to you. And I know it's not a nice conversation to have with you guys, but these weird people who like to sell and talk to people, like they can sometimes extend your brand in a way that you probably wouldn't do. They're a pain in the ass, I know. You burn through a lot of these people. And sometimes they don't even explain your products and services like you can. But if you're paying for their time, you can have government agencies get exposed to your brand. And sometimes just the calls, because if you're sitting making those calls, like you're like, I can't believe I've been doing this for 20 minutes. I could have been doing other things. But if you're paying someone to do that 20 minutes, and you're getting sales activity reports, and they're actually making the calls and making relationships, it is like there is a tremendous amount of relief to have an actual BD person working with you. Okay, I'm not selling it, but it is the world that we live in. So, and your competitors are using BD people. Okay, and I know that because I see them. Okay, and even small businesses at smaller sizes will do a part-time or commission BD person, business developer, and you're starting to realize, why am I losing work? Because they're throwing a warm body, you know. Okay. All right, let's get into the small stuff here. So, SAM.gov, you got in. I know you're in SAM.gov. LaDonna, are you in SAM.gov? God bless you people. All right. Now, and then, anybody looking at military? Okay. All right. You might. So dibs is in another area. It's more secure because it's the military. So it'll give you a little bit more of work in terms of SAM.gov. So we can do that together if you're looking at it. But just so that you're aware. And how many of you are registered with the state of Florida? I know this is a federal contract. One. I know you are because you're DVE. Or are you? And then My Florida Marketplace?
I think so.
Okay, just check. Or we can talk about it. So this is the SAM.gov for the state of Florida.
Okay.
Okay, so there's like one login for the state of Florida. It's called the My Florida Marketplace. So, and in your case, the state of Florida might be an opportunity for you to pursue. I'm not overselling that because I have more federal contractors and I have more local contractors. I don't have a lot of state contractors, and I think there's a reason. I don't know what that reason. Well, I have certain suspicions why that reason is, but so I'm not asking you to waste your time. But please, you're very specialized. I think you should at least look at it. Okay. All right. Go ahead and take a picture of this page. This is like a repeat of the previous page, but I just want you to have it. Okay. So, did I get in your way? Sorry.
No, you're good.
So, in our our meetings together, I will sit on this with you, because depending on what area of government you're going after, and if you're still, I will kind of work through these, right? So, so since this is a federal government conversation, so SAM.gov obviously is free. There are these 3 painful government websites that are so much fun, and but the government like literally just provides all of this detail on their contracts in the most like needle in the eye kind of way. So the university, what the FAU did was we purchased these 2 bid portals at the same company, and so I think we're paying like $15,000 over 3 years. And so that all of our pre-entrepreneurs, small business owners, and even our mid-market companies can just, when they're in meetings with us, we can just look at the portal and just look at solicitations.
Oh, I've been filling out a bunch of stuff on GoSpend.
Perfect. You gonna make the money? You gonna spend it?
Huh?
You gonna spend the money?
I keep doing ones for the city of Hialeah through there.
Oh, perfect.
I've been awarded about 4 or 5 contracts. In the
So
last
then you
month.
have subscription to GoSpend.
I guess. I don't know. I keep getting emails from them. And I keep
That's an interesting answer.
No, because they keep getting emails from GovSpend saying, "Hey, this contract might be available," or this quote, and so I keep filling out and.
Don't stop filling out. Don't stop filling out.
So I just did 3 more this morning.
You don't have to pay for it. You can get it. Just get it.
Yeah, 2 tents, and now I just did like $7,000 worth of promotional products for them. So.
That's working, good.
So I'm
I have
waiting to
no
see.
idea what magic you're.
I don't know. I literally get emails. I just got 2 more.
8 years of longevity, okay?
I didn't even know that was a paid thing. I literally get emails from them, and I just.
Well, don't mess it up. Don't say anything. So, yeah, I believe in integrity. Don't get me wrong. I'm mostly joking.
No.
You know. So, but so. I don't know if GovSpend is doing that. So if you guys can find a free way into this, please do, because I love that. But these are 2 portals. GovSpend is really cool because it's local, state, school district, county, and federal government. So it's got a pretty big footprint. And FedMine is just in the federal government. So what you see on SAM.gov, I've got a little bit more detail. So I can kind of just sit in there and kind of look at the solicitation, see where it is, and then we can kind of figure out any related kind of solicitations as well, right? So that's what FedMine does for me. I use it a lot of times to help small businesses look at the primes above it, so they can see how to approach the primes, because when you're dealing with the federal government, you're dealing sometimes, not always, sometimes you're dealing with a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and a tier 4, right? And so you're trying to figure out how to break through. In your case, depending on the work, you'll have to deal with this more. But you 2 might be able to do more prime work with the federal government. But you and I might have to figure out the landscape of which prime that you might want to work under, and then we'll talk about what primes you're already working with. And the thing about the federal government for you is GC is organized by the states. So some of the federal projects, the smaller ones, they can't put a GC requirement on it because that is not a federally regulated. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, you get me. Okay. So then what some of the states do, like North Carolina, they will say no federal work can be done in North Carolina unless they're GC'd in North Carolina. So a few states have figured this out. But I have a contractor who's like flying around the country because he's looking for ways to states that are not as so if you're willing to fly, or you send
Right now, we're just saying.
Okay. But some of these projects are tasty. Some of them are tasty, especially in your world.
Yeah.
So okay. All right. So then these are the other federal subscription and GovTrack, Deltec. But at least when you're working with FAU, we have access to 3 of these Proximity is very specific to parts in the defense industry, so, and then you will see me, I will push you to go after Unison Marketplace, especially you, because, the federal government will put on SAM.gov, and then some of the federal buyers will dump it on this thing called Unison. And it's like a small project, and that might be where you might catch a few, that might be in your area. So most people haven't heard about this, but the people who know about it, will register for it and pull it. Now, I know you're in the janitorial space, but do you sell janitorial supplies?
No.
Okay. I'm not saying you should, and I'm not saying you shouldn't.
Yeah, we have another person tell us that.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, and it's a whole universe, right? So I'm just saying what I'm saying. All right. Okay.
What are you saying?
Trying to give me more work to do.
Now, here's the critical thing if you're breaking in. So the purchase threshold is 10,000, and simplified acquisition threshold. So this is, I'm trying to think how I could say this. So it's the federal government, so they regulate heavy, right? So, but they want more small businesses to bid, right? So the best way for them to think about it is to create a window of 0 to 250K that has less regs. So if a solicitation is up to 250K, you're dealing with less red tape. Okay, so I think that's relevant to all three of you, that, because they create this opportunity where they want more small businesses to bid and win, look at stuff up to 250K when you look at this list, because once you cross that, then you're dealing with a whole set of regs above that, okay? And I think, based on what I know about you guys, these kind of jobs up to 6 figures to 250K will be beautiful, right? So please don't pass them up, because you're dealing with less red tape. Okay, all right. There are different types of contracts at the federal level. Fixed price just means that this is the price. This is the price, right? Then you're dealing with cost reimbursement. This might for you, where if the federal government feels like there's risk and they don't know where it's gonna go, they do a cost plus kind of scenario. And I'm not saying they're trusting you, but I'm saying that they're going to kind of figure it out with you. Which means that in your world, that means we're going to change order the sucker out of this. That's not what I mean by that, okay? And I know you don't do that. I'm just saying, in the construction world,
It can.
I know it, and literally everybody does it. I get it, right? But, I don't know what I'm say. After the Congresswoman's house thing, now I'm a little nervous. So, but there are certain procurement where if you're a federal contractor where they trust, you've got performance over time, you'll start to see some of these cost plus because they are pulling you into an area that they're not even sure how to estimate the cost, but they're willing to award it with you because your estimate makes sense to them. And then as it plays out, you can say, hey, these are the expenses we incurred, and we can go forward from there. So I just want to make sure you're aware of it because this is more relevant to you if you're pursuing federal contract, because you also kind of live in this world a little bit too. Because sometimes you have to CO it.
Yeah.
So I made a joke out of it, but the other side of it, you have to CO it because you just don't know how the project goes. You just start opening up stuff. You're like, oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Especially for code.
Yeah. Oh, I almost said something bad. Okay. yeah, I was just gonna say. Building code almost slipped into a rant on it. Okay, moving on. Woo! Okay, so this is for your current companies and then future companies that you have. This is the delicious contracting acronym in federal government is the IDIQ. Okay, so indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. If you think about that, that means the federal government needs what you have, but they just don't know how much they need, and they don't know when they need it. So they will do these 5-year, 7-year IDIQs with some company they think they trust, and just give them like a 5 to 7 year IDIQ. I'm overselling it a little bit. I just want you to be aware of it from information perspectives, but a lot of federal contractors who kill it, they just compete in this area. So what you'll want to do is find a prime who has IDIQs and then kind of live under their rule, because then they're ordering from you. Okay. I see some, I love when I see like, so this right here, this is not like, the companies are not gonna advertise they have an IDIQ, right? But as you're sniffing around and you find a prime that's doing federal work, and you're in between staff conversations, leadership conversations, and say, hey, tell us a little bit about your federal contract work, what type of work is it? And you start to get signals that they have a really good relationship with the federal government. You're telling the owner of your business, okay, target, red hot target. Does that make sense? Okay. I love smart people. You guys, if I could just like clone you guys. Okay, this is stuff I have to say to you. I hate saying it because it's like stuff that sounds good on paper, but not really reality. But I have to say it, okay? So the federal government has these things called forecasts, okay? And they on each department website, they will have these forecasts, okay? And I think it's good to look at the forecast, don't get me wrong, okay? That's a nice thing about the federal government is that they forecast. In local governments, it's rare for them, local governments to be able to forecast, right? But federal governments, they're spending all of our money, so they have to at least tell us, some of us, where they're gonna spend it, okay? There's no joke there. So if you have time or you have someone like an intern, you know, might look at the forecast, it might be good documentation to pull down, okay? Because if you pull down each department, because there's a lot of these federal departments, you pull down a forecast and have somebody kind of look it over and say, is there anything in there for you? And then say, hey, if you find something, let's bubble that sucker up. I think that's the way to handle this. Because if you're sitting on federal websites, departments, and just pulling down forecasts, if that's a good use of your time, it's not. I know this, but the problem is that your larger competitors have warm bodies to just sit on this stuff, and they will target that agency as part of their, what they call business capture, okay? They're using the forecast to now set up how many people they're going after, which lobbyists, who's gonna speak to who. They're gonna set up their sales BD team to kind of figure out who's closest to the target, right? So they're using, it helps to know how the larger competitors are using the forecast. I hope that helps you as small business owners, so that if you have a federal prime above you and they're good at using these forecasts, then you know that they're gonna fill your sales pipeline as well, okay? Every single federal solicitation has FAR, and it's just the regulation of the federal government, all right? So what I tell people is this, okay? If you see one of these FAR with all these long numbers, grab that FAR number and just throw it into your browser and just, you know, because if you start to see a bunch of them and you're like, you know, I need to know this FAR reg, just throw it into your browser and you'll just have links that'll just take you to the actual reg. And just spend a minute or two just eyeball scanning it, just to see if there's anything that catches your eye, okay? This thing intimidates everybody going into the federal government, and this is the last thing I want you to get intimidated by, because if you're going after federal work, you're gonna be living in the FAR to some degree, okay? And it's just a matter of familiarity. It'll take you a while to do so, but the more money you make, the more if you're not making money, then it doesn't make sense to sit on FAR. But if you're making money, then knowing a few of the FAR regs, so then here's the other side. If you're working with us, we've got training in federal government that's more even precise than what I'm doing today. Mine's more overview. And we have access to training that's free, that we pay for as a university. It's called Govology. And there's just topic by topic. I can just, as you're working with me, I can provide it. I don't tell this to everybody, and I only tell it to my companies that hustle. But in this case, I like you guys, I like the town of Davie. I'm telling you what I don't normally tell people. But people who hustle, I give them the training because I know they'll actually view it because they have a reason to, because they're hustling, because they're trying to figure out how to break this. Good so far? Then the defense industry obviously has to have its own regs. Okay, all right. We're at 11:45, so I feel like how much time, or am I in the negative, or, oh, good.
It's
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Whew,
Big
okay.
negative.
Now,
No, but it's okay. But
no problem, no problem. How we doing? We doing okay?
Fantastic.
So just an overview, but okay. So, the people who sit and put their butts in my seat, we talk endlessly about the capability statement, and I literally hate this thing, okay? Because it's like busy work for people in my line of work to tell small business owners to do this, but then just kind of leave you out hanging. This is an important one-page document, two-page document. It's like a resume, okay? But it's not like the end-all be-all. I'm not supposed to say that to you. I guess I'm supposed to tell you, do your capability statement and amazing things will happen or something, but it's not like that. I mean, nothing's like that. I mean, if it was a silver bullet, it would be amazing, but there's nothing like that. But if you're using your capability statement, your one-pager, the idea is you are trying, now, this is the same company, they're doing a two-pager. You can start with a one-pager, okay? You can see they put their certifications here. We're going to talk about contract vehicles. They have their contract vehicle here. That's important. Obviously, they've given their commercial is over here, what they do, right? They're also listing all their certification in different areas. Cool. All fine. All fine. But this is what the capability statement. If somebody like me tells you to do one of these, this is what's important, which is who are your major clients? Because the contract officer who decides to look at your one-pager, like they just want to know, like, have you done any work before with anybody? Right? So right out of the gate, they're going to look, is there any federal departments in here? Which, in this case, Accenture is a tier 1 prime, but it's not. So, and then they have Department of Employment Services, Department of Consumer Regulatory. So these are small departments, but they're still federal, right? But they've got a little bit of federal performance. But let me give you an example a different way. So I used to judge business plan competitions many years ago, many years ago. So, and nothing worse than having to read a business plan, okay? Whew. So I was like, okay, the best way to do this is, if I read your business plan, I just like flip through all this nonsense and I just go straight to the management plan. Like, who's running this thing? I just go right to that page. I read that page significantly, and then I read the rest of the junk. Then I read the financials, and I read all the stuff that says what you're amazing at, right? But once I figure out who runs the thing, then I knew how much fluff was in the rest of the whole document. If somebody give me a 20, 30, 100-page business plan, why am I reading all this? Andrea's like, because Andrea lives in business plans.
And I read them, and I do
And
have to read the 100 pages that you send me, and
And
then
she does a beautiful job at
cut
it.
out 60 of them.
Yeah, she does a beautiful job. And no, I really hate business plans. I can't even turn it around any other way. Okay, because in some cases, running business might include having to do one, God forbid. But my point is, I would just take one slice, and that's what Ucker told me about the rest of it. That's what the federal buyer does with the capability statement. They just look at what clients you've had, what performance. They're like, oh, well, they've done work with, DOJ. They've worked with, DOT. Well, then I'll read the rest of this. So if they even look at this, they're looking at what your performance is anyways. Does that make sense? Some of them strangely do actually look at this. So you register for SAM.gov, then the SBA has its own vendor page where you can put your own capability statement, and it's an SBA profile, and you can actually dump the content that's from your website or from your capability statement, and you can put it, and it becomes an online capability statement. And it's structured very similar to this. And there are contract officers in a minimal way who actually look at this once in a while. Because if they're trying to source and they're trying to figure out, is there some small micro business, or somebody told them go look for some small businesses, so they have to just allot the time to go look. You want to make sure your SBA profile is filled out, right? So I went all over the place. This is a form of marketing. if you're going through our program, I will take it seriously. I'll have you put a capability statement, because in a way it's a small commercial, and you can use it as a marketing piece. You can put it on your website. So we have a colleague, her name is Jasmine, and she helps people kind of pull their website in such a way that it has a little bit more friendly to a government buyer. And so one of the things that she does is take your capability statement, helps you with the drafting of it. She doesn't do it for you, but she'll help you with the drafting, make sure like the format's good. Then she'll encourage you then put it on your website so you have a government landing page that has your capability statement. This is not bad, right? Because then if you're starting to hunt for federal work and they decide to do due diligence and they go on your site and they see you have a government landing page, guess what's looked at? Now your capability statement is actually being reviewed. Because most people take the capability statement and just shoot emails at people. Which, you know, I'm not against email marketing, right? But at the same time, if it's on your website, it can be really powerful. So take it for what it's worth. It's your call. Okay. I was just talking about. So this is the SBA profile. Okay. All right. So LaDonna, I know you deal with primes, and then Tori, when I've been talking about primes, what's your level of understanding about prime contractors?
The prime contractor would be the head person.
Yes. So
that actually goes out and bids for it, and then you can have subcontractors.
yes, got it. So that's perfect. So if the government is, whoever's doing the direct bid is called a prime, right? So you might directly bid on something as a janitorial company, and you'll be considered the prime, but there might not be any subs because you're doing 100% self-performance. You're a prime as well, because I don't think you sub a lot of your work, right? So so you're the prime on every contract. Now in the world you live in this world, right?
I live in everything.
Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So, I knew
My
that line.
boss would rather have the prime.
Yes, I would also like to live in, you know. So you guys are so much fun. So you might find yourself, you know, on different sides of this, right? And so I just want to make sure I'm clear on that process with you. You might find that if you are doing some business outside of your core, you might find yourself also subbing for a federal contract with a prime that you didn't even think about that you might be doing work for. I could see you as a consultant potentially, right? So the reason I want to make sure I make that terminology clear with you, because it's just a big part of government work. And so one of the reasons I introduced you guys together, but I want you to start thinking, go against South Florida culture and figure out who you can team with. Okay, so grow your capacity. Now, we live in South Florida, so, and American culture is went in a certain way because of mobile and digital and whatever else. So I understand teaming is a nice thing to say, but it's very hard to do, and it's hard to keep. And we all live in reality, okay? Or at least I do. And you may have temporary team scenarios, right? That's actually what's nice about MOU. It's not an aggressive legal instrument, right? So you can team up on a job. You don't have to go and do an actual JV where you're both incorporating a separate company. Start with the teaming and seeing whether the teaming arrangement, like, is anyone screwing the other one, or is anyone doing any kind of out of sort, and can we go job to job and team, okay? Now, and again, an MOU it's hard to legally enforce an MOU, okay? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but you understand, right? It says phlegm and thin, a legal instrument. It really it's basically a paper handshake at the end of the day. But, Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
I'm sorry that I have
No,
to
don't be
leave,
sorry.
guys.
You've been great.
Thank you.
I'm so
very
glad you
much.
introduced us. So thanks for being here.
My
So,
pleasure.
and
Thank
just a
you.
reminder, Andrea's here on
Second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday.
The next one's April 9th.
So you might want to consider potentially teams that that could bring you to the table. And you're the kind of company I can't imagine a teaming scenario. I can't, but it's possible. But you haven't had to do it, right? You've even had to team up with a company because you want everything by yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so far, I mean, luckily.
Yeah. But in your case, Tori, I think janitorial, there's so much competition in the janitorial space. But once an agency trusts a janitorial company, this is where you get to subcontract. And so if you team up for capacity, you can figure out how trust develops over time. And with the janitorial companies I've worked with, it's sometimes the capacity of the staff, because the burn and churn that you guys have, and you also have challenges with margin from what I can tell. And so you guys are a little shark-like too, I've noticed. The janitorial companies are kind of brutal with each other. I'm not lying on any of this, right?
No,
Yeah, guys,
no.
I keep seeing some
And
of the same
turnover
patterns.
rate is
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, but it's the nature of the beast, right? So you can treat your people well, but they still move on because it's tough work.
And you, I mean, honestly, you know, it's not like a construction or like yours, like a family like that, where, you know, like your family's doing all the embroidery and things like that nature, correct? Like your
We have
company-
35 employees, so,
But-
yeah,
You know, like that's more of a family though.
right.
Whereas janitorial, you know, the people come in, you train them, but nobody wants to be a janitor for the rest of
That's
their
right.
life. Kind of deal, you know. So
Yeah,
that's
your
where,
turnover and churn is high.
Yeah, it's
Because
that.
I think I lost the company because she churned her people like completely out, and that was hard to see. But she also was done. She was done. It was hard to see her leave, but I knew it was gonna happen. But in your case, what I would do is start looking at janitorial work that's happening, do like a 50 to 100 mile radius, and let's see what janitorial work is going on around
Yeah.
in the federal space, because you might find something. All right. Let me pause here, because we're kind of coming to a lull. Any questions so far? Anything that is that? Okay. So on the let's see, because that's not relevant for you guys, but for you, the prime contractors. Do you have any prime contractors doing federal work?
Yeah,
You do. How are your relationships with them?
some of them are good.
Some of them are good. Okay.
Mhm.
And then how's your owner feel about that? Like, does he want to strengthen those
Yes,
relationships?
he wants to strengthen.
Has he made time to?
I'm the one that would be strengthening.
I see.
Love that.
Wow. So here's what you and I
work wife.
Yes.
got it.
We know what that means. Okay.
I got it. So what you and I would do is we would take the names that you have, the federal contractors you have, and we'll go in FedMine and look them up and see what work they're doing with which department. And I can see the dollars, and I can just have you look at that, and then that becomes a conversation teaser when you go back to them and say, hey, I noticed you did some DOJ work recently, and I can't get it to the invoice, but I can get pretty close to what the spend might have been. So we can look at that. So your names, we literally could look at those departments that those federal contractors actually have done work for. You'd be surprised. You might even put some names in there that you didn't think were doing federal work, and
Yeah.
you know, so you and I could spend just looking at primes that way. So this is one of those pages I have to do as well. So, so the OSDBU is kind of like the diversity side of procurement. So they will be the point of contact for small businesses. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not, okay? Because some people are committed and some people are not. And so you will sometimes I will sometimes encourage you to make contact. So if you're going after DOJ work or you're going after the Department of Transportation, there's gonna be this funny named acronym department for that federal department. And a lot of times the forecast for what they're doing will be at this little obscure acronym's website, right? And so because they're supposed to be the small business liaison to the marketplace. And if they don't know you exist, then that could, so a lot of times what will happen is I will send you to do a capability briefing to this department at the federal government. And then once you've done a capability briefing, so you use that capability statement, now this is actually where it actually is useful. So you have a capability statement, you're showing your capacity, here's what you do, and you log in, like it'll be like a Zoom or Teams meeting and say, I mean, I'm not telling you to fly to DC. We could do it, and they'll have virtual, and you'll just meet with one of the people out there. And you'll see them glass-eye you, right? But as soon as you see something kind of pop, and you just have, like any sales presentation, you gotta work them, right? And say, do you imagine any kind of work that I could bring to the table? Because they're just, I know I sound cynical on so many things. I do that purposely because in small business we're cynical by nature. So I know I'm speaking your language because it's my language. So they've got to do time with small businesses. Okay. You guys get this. I love it. So, but sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't know you guys existed. Okay. So I was at a reverse trade show in Orlando last week. My APEX Accelerator colleagues in Orlando. And, so a reverse trade show is that team brought all of the government agencies in one room, and the small business owners actually came to them and one-on-one did their presentation to the government agency there, okay? So I was there because I'm interested in doing a reverse trade show, so wink, wink, Leona. So,
Well, there will be one tomorrow.
Yay!
Through procurement.
okay.
Brian mentioned it the last
Is it
time.
and
NIGP, I
NIGP
believe.
is tomorrow?
I think it's Coral Springs, I
Oh.
believe.
I need to
Oh, I
get
thought
an
that
email
was
about
April.
that. I've set up there
I thought it
before.
was April 11th. I changed the
Yeah, please check.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have like 30 local governments.
Well, yeah, because I did it once originally, the reverse trade show in Coral Springs
Yeah,
and set up there.
didn't realize that was happening. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, perfect. So when you see these people one-on-one, they sometimes, some of the people in these small business offices, they're cynical, they don't want to do time, but then there's the other side where they're passionate about finding a small business. So you have both personalities in this group. Okay, so.
It
so I
is
don't-
April 11th.
Okay, thank God. Woohoo!
I'm having my own meeting tomorrow. Do my own reverse trade show tomorrow.
Me and you. Okay, what do you do?
We're prepping for the reverse trade show.
Usually Brian tells me about that energy. So just because I present it cynically at times, it's only because I'm protective of small business owners, but I want you to know that there are people, and I saw all these, they were all small business SPLOs coming from various federal government agencies, and they were really listening to people because you could tell they were coming to source. There was some that they were interested. So there's the flip side of it too. So you and I may push you to do a capability briefing because you never know. Because sometimes talking with a federal government officer allows you to kind of get a sense of it, and they might say, hey, look out for this coming up, look out for this coming up, because now they know you exist. But sometimes they'll just flat out tell you, we might not be your best fit. And that's helpful, because then you're just taking that federal government agency off the there's a lot more vocabulary there, but okay, let's see here. Okay, this is I'm gonna do a little shtick here, okay? This is my personal little opinion thing, okay? So, because a lot of times identifying the decision maker they're not where you think they are, right? And government's kind of the same thing, where you might see this title, and the title suggests that they're the decision maker, but they're not the decision maker.
Mhm.
They represent the decision, but they didn't make the decision.
Mhm.
And as a business owner, this is where you have to be kind of you gotta do reconnaissance. So I always tell people like this, and I usually do this talk for local government, but it's true about federal government too. Like every agency is its own soap opera. And I'm like deadly serious. I know it sounds like a joke, but I'm deadly serious. Now, there are highly performing municipalities like Town of Davie, but there's a lot of other stuff. Leona was talking about this earlier. There's a lot of stuff going on in different agencies. And sometimes the decision makers are very much spread around the agency. And sometimes they're at war with each other, okay? And so sometimes when you're stepping into a scenario, you kind of have to figure out like how warm the water is. And sometimes warm means hurricanes coming, you know, like when you step in the ocean and the water's warm, you're like, oh, we have hurricanes coming, right? That's something I learned about Florida. So I want you to kind of pay attention to, even at the federal level, even though it's like very remote, it's DC, but start to kind of figure out how to carve up the agency and where, and this is where at the beginning I talked about what relationships do you have, and then use those relationships to give you information that you need to gather, okay? And you'll be surprised how your network might actually reach into the federal space. You might have went to school with someone who like works for the federal government in some federal facility. And I always say to people, I don't care if they're the janitor or the custodian, like you'd be amazed what the janitor and custodian knows in a building. They know a lot of what's going on in that city. Because they're walking through every office, they know who's working late, they know who's, and so anybody in government that you know could be absolute give you intel, like unbelievable intel, you know, and that's all about trying to identify the decision maker. So if you're going to hire a BD at some point, you have to be a BD. You have to be a business developer, and there's no telling. The federal government's actually similar in this way. You don't have to be in DC to know what's going on there sometimes. Okay? All right, that's my little rant. I want to kind of get into practicals because we're slowing down here. Questions, comments? You guys had process questions. What process questions could I answer as we're closing out?
I mean, you've answered some about like with different sites, and just, you know, understanding more of what they're looking for, having that other chart of stuff to also present them, things like that.
Okay.
So I think I've gotten more.
So this is what I would spend time with you, is if you're going into the federal government, I would organize you this way in terms of your targets, okay? And then a lot of people winning work are attending things in the federal government. So it's a huge industry, federal events. So it's not all air campaign work where we're in front of a computer. You'll have to get somebody out of the office to attend some of these expos, because some of these federal buyers will actually attend or they'll do their own. So you want to start looking for these, because a lot of intel is shared at these events, because they're out of the office, so they can speak more freely. They're not. And that's when you want to get key information. And some of the companies I'm working with, I've noticed before they went viral within federal work, they attended a few of these events and just figured out the BS really quickly, and then they started bouncing around within the federal government. Okay, so I'm not telling you you're gonna get work because you spent all this money to go to them, but you know, maybe do one a year. You know, just say there's an 8A conference, SBA 8A conference. There's several veterans conferences. There's on the minority side, you have the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, and they have a federal support program inside their agency, inside their council. You're not gonna talk about
My Florida?
Nope, the Florida.
That's a whole nother site.
Whole different thing. Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, and they certify companies that are minority-owned firms in the private sector. Don't worry. I'm like this in private, right? So I split. Do you understand how many slides I could do? Because I just can't stop. I can't stop.
Right.
There's just
They're so,
yeah, but
that's
what?
one thing I've been.
Yeah, but what I'll do is I'll break it
There's
into
so
pieces.
many sites.
Yeah, yeah, but when we're in meetings, I'm focusing on the next milestone. Because as small business owner, there's just no way, right? That's why you saw me. I said, listen, I'm doing an overview because it's just but I want to break it into small pieces, and I do it at your pace.
Yeah, and where do you, as far as the conferences and expos, where are we looking to see where they are, when they are, like?
I do customize. So per meeting, I customize it because you guys have limited time, so I have like a half an hour or so with you. So we just cut it to where, and then each meeting as it progresses, we just break pieces out. You know, because otherwise, it's just too much. And I don't like See, my father, like when I was growing up, he's like, "Don't waste time. Don't waste people's time. Don't waste people's time." And that one little rule has helped me in life. It was like, don't wait. If you're gonna speak to people, like at least say things that matter, and then let them move on, right? So they can do what they need to do. I'll customize it. On the pre-bid, do I need to talk about pre-bid? I know I don't need to talk to you about pre-bid, but pre-bid meetings. So when you find a solicitation, always look and see if they have a pre-bid meeting. It's really, really critical. Government agencies, all of them from top down, they will sometimes say this is mandatory, and sometimes they'll say it's non-mandatory.
Right.
But if you're hungry and you want that, it's mandatory for you, even because the things that they say at these pre-bid meetings, it depends on the agency. Some of them will just sit there and just do this, and then sometimes you'll have they will say real and actionable things, and then the audience will ask questions. And depending on, I'm not talking federal now, but sometimes they will answer questions in the pre-bid meeting, but they won't put it in the addendum. So you will only hear it in the pre-bid meeting. But if you were to send them an email, most, if not all, will do an addendum because they have to.
Yes.
Because they have to answer it publicly to the public. But if you're in the pre-bid meeting, they will answer questions there because there's no way they could capture and put all the addendums. Some cities are really good, and some agencies, they'll take all the questions and the answers and they will dump it into an addendum because the business owners made them think about the procurement differently. Like, oh, I guess we didn't touch that piece, or that's this is a piece that we didn't address. So then they'll put it in. But sometimes there's critical information at the pre-bid. Okay.
And sometimes they're recorded. Sometimes the pre-bid meetings are, some municipalities recorded, and the majority of them don't. So whatever you miss in the pre-bid meeting, you miss it.
Yes. So on the federal level, sometimes you have to go and travel to do the pre-bids. So that's because it might be at a base, it might be that region. And they do it on purpose because that allows them to limit the number of bids for them to have to review. So you see the tactic, right?
Yeah.
So
just the FYI, Sam.gov, you have to, now, they're making them mandatory to attend, and you have a week.
Wow.
Usually if it's posted this week, the site's visitation or conference is what they're calling them, is next week.
Wow.
So you don't have a lot of time.
yeah, because they're just getting so much income.
Yeah.
So I went so long, but I'm gonna close on this last piece here, which is the GSA. How many of you have heard of the GSA? How many of you are considering the GSA? Everybody? Okay. So I'm gonna just flip through it real quickly. All right. So I just want to show you this fan. Okay. So this fan represents what we call contract vehicles. Okay. So what the federal government does is they don't just buy off of the formal solicitations they put out. They don't just buy off of the RFQs they put out. Sometimes they just buy. I think you're getting it. So they just have a vehicle, basically, and they've got this contract vehicle that just says, I need to buy this right now, and instead of putting it out for a formal bid and dealing with that nonsense, all of these prices are in front of me, I'm just gonna buy it like a catalog. So the federal government has its own Amazon. So a lot of the money that's spent is not on SAM.gov. It's spent through the contract vehicle. So so GSA is one of them.
Right.
Is one of them. And so, I mean, so I talked about the micro purchase, the purchase order, BPAs, so all of this, you hear the IDIQ, so all of this is how the federal government is spending, and then there are contract vehicles in there, so that the federal government, if they don't need to procure it through a formal method, they're not going to, they're just gonna buy off the contract vehicle. So, what that means is,
Even construction?
construction might be different, but there might be small projects where they might,
That would get our foot in the door.
yes, yeah. So what I do is, depending on how many meetings you have with me, if we're just hunting and hunting and hunting, I might take you to the GSA library because it's all public. So then I will then just have you and I will just go through the e-library and we'll look for what contracts are out there. So you and I would look at how many janitorial GSA vendors that are out there, and we could look at their pricing, because the GSA is basically the procurement officer for the whole federal government. So then they will actually negotiate prices with the vendor, and then now that's a schedule. That schedule is pricing that's already been negotiated, and then anyone in the federal government can just buy off of that schedule.
That's how we,
Well, Town Davie does that too.
yes, that's what I was gonna say. We definitely use GSA for
Right.
certain services, for certain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right, because I told the fire department about that, because they needed something, and I was like, go to purchasing, they have
Yeah.
GSA for that,
Yeah.
and I know the company that's on there, so they went and purchased it through
We've
them.
used it for, our website provider, when we were selecting our website. They're on the GSA contract, that's how we select them. Several services, administrative services, but for construction, I'm not, yeah, it might be a little.
So I'm not trying to mess y'all up. What I'm trying to say is, it is a federal vehicle, but you are hearing from the town of Davie
Yeah.
officially that they will look, if you have a schedule, they'll look at your schedule because it's pricing you've negotiated with the federal government. They're saying, hey, can we have that pricing too? Okay. So, and so then what happens is, there are companies who go and get GSA pricing, and then they sometimes offer it to their other government agencies. Not on the front end, nobody does that, right? But if they need to, they might, in terms of getting some action. Construction, you and I might have to look at that, because I haven't really, usually when I'm dealing with GSA, I'm usually dealing product
Yeah.
side.
Yeah,
But there are lots of services that have GSA, and so it's worth kind of looking at. So,
absolutely.
alright. Now, the thing about the GSA is, if the federal government has spent all this time, negotiating it, then if nobody actually buys off of your schedule, then the schedule then terminates. So, like, I think you get 2 years to have the federal government buy $25,000 worth of procurement from you, and if they don't, then you're on the bad list, and then your schedule goes away. There's something about your pricing nobody liked, they didn't like your company, something. So you spend all this time getting on the schedule, negotiating, and going through 6 months or more, and then if nobody buys off of the schedule because you didn't market the schedule, no one heard about your schedule, you didn't push it, or they just don't like your pricing because your competitors, you didn't even spend time in e-library and looked at your competitors, what their pricing is and whether you're competitive, because it's on the public record. So imagine the private sector, you could actually look at everybody's pricing. Can you imagine that? Well, in the public sector, the federal government forces that so that because their GSA is saying, we get the best price for the federal government, so everybody's prices are out in your sector is now on the public. So you and I are like, okay, let's look at all the competitors. I literally sat with a company, I'm like, your competitor does this, and he had a hard time with that conversation, but I'm like, you're telling me you're not getting any work, but look at your competitors. We're literally looking at their pricing, and this is what they're offering, right? So, use time with me, business therapy, use it for hunting, use it for research, right? So if you don't have time to research, spend it with me and do research together, because I'm a nerd, so I'll do it with you, right? All right. I think I've like I've tried not to bore you, but this stuff like will bore you, and I'm even getting bored as I'm telling you. So, how we doing so far? Because I'm gonna close out here. Is that okay? Or
Yeah.
okay? Because you can see I could just keep going. But I have to end with this. Is that I want you to know that there are federal buyers who are just buying off of schedules. Okay, like in IT, there's like separate IT contract vehicles at the highest levels. They're just buying off of it. They're not putting. So we're not. When you're on SAM.gov, we're not seeing all that's on SAM.gov. So I
Also,
think
the vehicles, a lot of police vehicles, a lot of that stuff is all on there. City vehicles, you know.
yeah. So here in Florida, we have the sheriff's contract. And the sheriff contract has tire, all the police vehicles, so much related to law enforcement.
Right.
So every agency, town of Davie, Broward County, they're buying off the schedule. The sheriff negotiated that for all of the agencies in the state of Florida. So at the local level, there's a schedule.
Right.
So you're seeing piggybacking going on. But the federal level, they just take it to the, because do you think a federal contract officer wants to put out a solicitation, or could they just, let me just buy? Look, if you buy off Amazon, I buy off Amazon, right? That's so. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna close. I don't have a formal close, but was that helpful? Does that kind of get you there? I'd love to do one-on-ones with you guys, and whoo, that was a lot. So, thank you to the town of Davie for having us. It's not a topic that they should feel any entitlement to actually do, but they do it out of the goodness of their heart and their commitment to the public. And you've heard me say cynical statements today, and so I can say that from the heart. I've seen the town of Davie really cares about the small business community, not just in their town, but in the region. I'm impressed by it. I always enjoy Brian's presentations because he's just he really puts some quality information to local vendors. So.
Well, both of you are very passionate about your individual. He's very local government, very passionate. Your federal government, very passionate. So that's good.
Yes. So thank you, the town of Davie. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for being such great listeners, because I could keep talking. So have a great day, everybody.